We all did it, but only one got blamed. I grew up on a farm in Pennsylvania, and as a little boy, I loved to play in the barn where Grandpop stored his hay bales. The bales were stacked so high that Grandpop had a rule. We were not allowed to play on those hay bales because we could get hurt if they started to fall. One day, my cousins and I were playing in the barn, and someone started climbing the bales, and before long, 9 or 10 of us were jumping from one bale to the next. And then somebody jumped, and the bales on one side of the stack started to tumble down. And someone else said, "Grandpop will be mad. We need to get out of here." And most of us ran out of the barn, but one cousin was stuck in the hay, and we left her there. And when my grandfather arrived to check out the noise, he scolded my poor cousin for playing in the hay. All of us had done the wrong thing that day, but we allowed one cousin to take the blame. During Holy Week, we know that several days this week have been given special names: Holy Thursday, Good Friday, Holy Saturday. But did you know that ancient Christians gave a special name to the Wednesday of Holy Week? They called it Spy Wednesday. According to the dictionary, a spy is someone who secretly collects information about someone and gives it to their enemies. In today's gospel reading, we find out who the spy is. His name is Judas. He secretly collects information about Jesus so that he can give that information to the enemies of Jesus who want to arrest him. Judas went to the enemies of Jesus and gave them the information they needed, and his reward was 30 pieces of silver. Whenever I read today's gospel passage, I feel so sad. Because on one hand, this passage describes Jesus. Jesus trusts God completely. Jesus never says no when his Father asks him to do something. Jesus never betrays his Father's will. Jesus is faithful. Judas is unfaithful. Jesus always tells the truth. Judas sneaks out into the night to betray Jesus. Judas does the wrong thing. But I also notice something else. In today's gospel, Jesus says, "One of you is about to betray me." And that's true. One person did betray him, Judas. But as we keep reading the Gospels, we discover that Judas was not the only one to betray Jesus or let Jesus down. How can I say that? Well, keep reading. Later on Holy Thursday night, 3 different people ask Peter if he knows Jesus. And 3 times Peter responds, "I don't know him." Isn't that a betrayal? And when Jesus is carrying the cross, where were the rest of the apostles? Were they helping him or encouraging Jesus? No. Many of them had fled in fear. Isn't that a betrayal too? You see, it's kind of like the hay bales in the barn. Everybody does it. One person gets blamed. If we read the Gospels honestly, what we discover is that almost everybody lets Jesus down. Almost everybody betrays Jesus in one way or another. But only Judas gets the blame. What happens to the rest of them? Well, after the resurrection, they get to have breakfast with Jesus. And why? Well, as we read the Gospels, we find out that Judas makes a second mistake after he betrays Jesus. Judas does realize that he has done something terribly wrong. But his second mistake is this: Judas convinces himself that Jesus could never, ever forgive him. But that's not true. Jesus forgave the men who nailed him to the cross. He prayed, "Father, forgive them." So Jesus could forgive everyone, even Judas. But Judas convinces himself that he is unforgivable. The rest of the disciples avoid this mistake. They don't give up on God's mercy, and they experience mercy after the resurrection. So, on this Spy Wednesday, our gospel calls us to remember at least two things. First, although Judas usually gets the blame, we need to remember that we all make mistakes, and we all, in one form or another, we let Jesus down. We all sin. We let one another down. Every one of us. Let's not point the finger of blame. And the other point? Jesus can forgive everything and everyone, including you and me. Don't ever give up on God. Don't ever be convinced that your sin is so bad that God can't forgive you. Jesus forgives us even when we let him down. That's one of the ways we know how much he loves us.